we know today is very different to the past. Many of the animals that used to be here are not anymore, and their activities helped preserve different microenvironments that were of great importance to our ancestors in their foraging activities.
These horses aren't wild, but they're as near as you'll find today, a breed similar to the tarpans of old.
I was watching the horses eating here a few minutes ago, and it's really interesting to see not the things that they've eaten. There's no surprises there. They're eating the young shoots of the reeds, they're eating the young shoots of the greater reed mace. But what they are leaving is this, which is iris, which is poisonous. So you can see already their selective grazing is going to have an impact on this environment of what plants remain here and those that don't. It'll be interesting to see over time how that affects the fenlands here.
To live in wetlands is to live with change. Marshes naturally dry out, becoming moist woodland, but grazed areas remain open and often flood, attracting wildfowl. It's all part of the ebb and flow of water levels our ancestors would have understood and felt no need to control. And where the trees fringed the waterways, there was another animal who was an important architect of our ancient landscape: the beaver. They fell trees, but only used the branches for their dams and lodges. The timber they leave behind would have been easy pickings for people who otherwise had only stone axes to cut down trees. Beaver coppice the woodland edge and create waterways through it, making flooded forests which have an abundance of wild foods, especially in the spring.
It's a lovely bit of woodland, isn't it?
It is. It's really very much as much of Britain would have looked like during the Mesolithic, isn't it?
In Britain, what used to be the work of beavers now has to be done by man. Yet these precious reserves are so small, without management, they would dry up and disappear.
You know, goose grass here really is very wiry, isn't it? But I think one of the things that's nice about this is that it's one of those plants that people can very easily identify by the way it sticks to them.
Absolutely. They are edible as they are, aren't they?
Yep.
And supposedly very good for the lymph system, lymphatic system.
I'll add a few more then. You never know. This is the winter leaves from a plant called lady's smock, Cardamom Pratensis. It's a beautiful spring flower that's full of vitamin C and has a very strong mustard flavour. Really, the only part of that I really like is the petals of the flower itself. The green parts are so pungent that they are almost too strong. But these winter leaves are much milder and a much better flavour for a salad. And I think that's quite interesting as well, because you can find these leaves at exactly the period in the year when a hunter-gatherer would be in need of the sort of vitamins that come from this plant.
Okay.
What about dog rose then? Because there's a big dog rose here.
Yes, I find the shoots of this are only edible when they're really very young indeed.
Like this?
Oh yes, exactly those. Exactly that. You get young, crisp bit that breaks off, snaps off easily.
I like the flowers in
Yes,
salad
they're
as well.
good too.
Yeah.
Very good.
This is my favourite flower, Gordon.
Ah yes, the
Blackthorn. Stunning, isn't it? Now, I like to put these in a salad. They've got that real almond flavour.
Yes, so the bitter almond, the cyanide.
So don't put too many in.
It's nothing like a dose of cyanide. Give it a piquance.
But it's a very strong flavour, isn't it? It
really
is
very
a strong almond
much
flavour.
stronger than hawthorn.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's no doubt about it. Wild foods can be dangerous, so don't gather what you don't know. But with experience, every step reveals other potential flavours.
Got some chickweed here, Gordon.
Oh, I wonder which sort we've got.
Wood chickweed, identifiable by 3 veins on the underside of the leaf, is delicate but tasty. Celandine flowers indicate small tubers that will later be ripe for roasting. The aromatic wild garlic is a plant whose leaves, flowers and bulbs are all edible. Hunter-gatherers I've met don't see themselves as separate from nature. They live within it, carrying a mental map of where important resources are and when they are at their best. It's a mindset we in Britain have lost, but one our ancestors must have had.
One of the delicacies available at this time of year for our foragers would have been wild birds' eggs. And to give you an idea of what they might have done with them, I brought with me a couple of goose eggs. Of course, these were bought, not harvested. The great thing about an egg is it comes packaged, ready to cook, in its own cooking pot. And what I need to do is open it up. If I put that in the fire as it is and cook it, it will explode, and we want to try and avoid that at all costs. So what I'm going to do, in the blunt end of the eggshell, I'm going to use a knife. They would have used obviously a piece of flint. I'm just going to tap with the knife and break a hole in the top of the egg, which is just slightly over 1 centimetre in diameter. If you make it too small, the hole heals over and then the egg can burst again. And that egg is now ready to cook, you can see there. And the way I'm going to do that is just going to nestle it into the embers of the fire. The fire's quite hot, this fire. Move the burning sticks away a little bit and rake some embers up around that. I think cooking goose's eggs like this would have been something very special in the past. We kind of take eggs for granted, but if you're foraging for them, there are only a few birds that could give you eggs throughout the year, things like pigeons. When it comes to goose's eggs like this was very much a seasonal delicacy, and you can imagine our ancestors waiting in anticipation for the arrival of the geese in the winter. That meant a lot of things. It meant a fat, rich bird to be eaten during the winter, and then when spring came along, they'd have been watching very eagerly, maybe the children out looking, gathering the eggs, bring them back and cook them. It's quite likely that people sat around and cooked them in this way as a bit of a feast.
Roughly how long would you allow an egg to cook for in a gentle fire like this one?
To be honest with you, out here, the temperature, the ambient temperature, the wind,
yes, sure.
the type of embers that we're burning, the dryness of the firewood, that all has an effect. So the only way to know is to watch.
Yes, sure.
But as a rough guide, I guess, if you want, something 40 minutes, something like that, 30-40 minutes is about right. So you want to be cooking it slowly. That egg's about ready to take out now, so I think just when I take it out, it's going to continue cooking because it's very hot.
I'm glad you're pointing at yourself, right? Oh.
No, nothing if it's going to go off, might as well go off in a useful direction. And this one's ready
looks
for
good. Been cooking now.
Yeah, this one's ready for. I really like this direct sort of cooking. You know, it's just straight into the fire, and you get to taste the ingredients. You know, in the purest state. There's no.
Right, true enough.
And there we are. Look,
Excellent.
nicely cooked.
Looks yummy. Thank you. That's good.
In fact, I'll tell you what I really like. I like these, the flowers, especially when they're at this point, when they haven't quite opened. Fantastic.
It's a good combination,
That's a
isn't it?
good combination.
Yes. Those plants were growing and alive a matter of minutes ago, and this could be true of the egg too.
Yeah.
So fresh, delicious, very tasty, and very nutritious.
What's amazing, of course, is that we sit around and argue today ad infinitum about whether or not our food should be fresh or how it should be grown. And our ancestors didn't have any of those problems. They went out and they picked what was fresh and healthy and ate it in that form. They didn't mess around. Their diet must have been incredibly good. Get some of that chickweed. It looks lovely. Very nice.
You've got the protein and the fat from the egg,